What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Duke Wisdom Podcast. Recording immediately after the season opener against Dartmouth. Gonna record, my immediate reactions to that and everything that we saw in that game, and look forward to Arizona on Friday. I do have to go ahead and preface that I will not be watching, at least most likely. I probably shouldn't be watching the Arizona game live Friday night. My brother is getting married on Saturday, and I am going to be at the rehearsal dinner for his wedding on Friday night. So I will not be watching the Arizona game live. When I get home late that night, I'll either watch it then or I'll watch it, I suppose, like Sunday morning, maybe. Either way, I will have watched it by the time next Tuesday's episode is ready to come out. And I don't want to go too deep into the Arizona preview today because I'm going to do more of a deep dive into the Arizona preview on Thursday's episode. That's the nature of my release schedule. It'll come out before we play, before they play Arizona. So today I want to talk mostly just about the season opener against Dartmouth. And that is going to be the main thing I talk about. But I do want to talk about the women's basketball opener against Richmond. I was lucky enough that this season I have a season media credential for women's basketball. So I will be at every home game for women's hoops that I can be at. I was there today. 11 a.m. start time on a Monday is crazy. And I'll have an article coming out about the game tomorrow, hopefully tomorrow morning. And so definitely a different atmosphere when you go to a college basketball game at 11 a.m. on a Monday. And especially when there's like 1,000 elementary school kids mostly in the crowd behind you. So I suppose there were a lot of kids on a field trip in that game, and they were just like all just filling the stands right behind me on press row. And every time Duke would shoot a three, those kids would be behind me like, "Give me three!" They were just so funny. They were so funny. One of them asked the ref, they were like, "You got a spare?" And the ref was like, "A spare what?" They were like, "A ball." And she's like, "Yeah, I got one right here in my pocket." And I was really trying my best not to just start cracking up, man. Sitting there, they were hilarious. Those kids were so loud. They had it sounded like vintage Cameron. It was a lot of fun. And at the end, the team went and they did high fives with all the kids behind me, and they all just came up and like shoved me into the table and moved the table forward like 4 feet because there were so many of them trying to get high fives. And so that was funny. But Duke women's basketball with a very impressive 30-point win over Richmond. A young team, not an incredibly deep team, only 11 players on roster. One of them's hurt, and Vanessa De Jesus. So only 10 players really playing for Duke women's basketball right now, but they look good despite their youth. Reagan Richardson was absolutely freaking fearless shooting the basketball. She had 28 points, I think 12 of 15 from the floor. She was spectacular. And then Akinanwa in her first game had 22 points, 12 boards. I mean, just what a workhorse. She just hustles to everything, sprints to everything. Her effort is unreal. I mean, she'd get a bucket off a second chance play on offense, and she'd immediately be turning to full court press, and she'd go and get a steal, boom, and then she's right back up at the basket. Super impressive. Loved what I saw from her, and she came off the bench. Got to think you'll see, really good games throughout the season from Jaden Donovan, from Ashlyn Jackson, from Kennedy Brown. I like what I saw from Duke women's basketball, and I'm looking forward to covering them in person in Cameron Indoor Stadium as the season goes on, and super, super honored and lucky to have that opportunity. With all that said, let's go ahead and get into the Dartmouth game.
Want to join a community of Duke accounts publishing news, theories, and predictions on Duke athletics? Join the Duke Wisdom Network. Just go to dukewisdom.org/join network today and fill out the form with your name and social media. Or you can DM at Duke_wisdom on Twitter or Instagram. Become a part of the community of Duke fans publishing their takes today. Again, that's dukewisdom.org/join network or DM at Duke_wisdom on Twitter or Instagram.
Well, a little bit before tip, we're surprised again, just like we were last March, with a no Mark Mitchell for today. So a lower leg injury that doesn't seem serious, no crutches, no brace, nothing like that. Seems walking on his own weight fine. He seems okay. If I had to guess, I think he'll probably be ready to run against Arizona. I guess it's possible he wouldn't, but I think that Mark's probably going to be ready to play against Arizona. And the fact that he didn't play was to make sure that he's ready to go against Arizona, because they're going to need him there. And so no Mark Mitchell today. And that's something I'm going to bring up more as I talk about how the rotation kind of panned out, because no Mark Mitchell affected how the rotation panned out without a doubt. Early in the game, though, Ryan Young's the fifth starter. No shocker there. I said Ryan Young would start day one. I was right, and you can't tell me otherwise. He wouldn't have started if it wasn't for Mark's injury. But oh well, I take my wins. Ryan Young was a starter day one. I was right. Anyway, very early in the game, Jared McCain gets going with 2 3-pointers. Loved seeing that. We didn't get to see him hit one at Countdown or in the exhibition. I don't think he hit one in the exhibition. Anyway, he might have. But it was good to see him hit a pair of threes there at the beginning of the game. He didn't play as much as you'd want him to because of foul trouble for much of the game, and he ends up fouling out actually toward the end of the game. And at the beginning of the game, the refs just certainly weren't shy to blow that whistle. A lot of small fouls, and the announcers talked about it, that there's the rule change with charges, and it's going to be a lot more difficult to draw charges this season, that the players have to establish legal guarding position, before that last step is lifted, basically. And so there's no cutting it underneath guys for charges. I love that rule. I know that John Shire spoke out against it, that it's going to be harder, because guys are scrapping, they're going in, and that's a good way to play defense and scrap and everything. But and I see that from a college basketball standpoint, but as somebody who watches the NBA a lot, I'm of the opinion that is a great rule for the safety of players. I have seen Ja Morant, I have seen Giannis Antetokounmpo get injured, from players sliding in underneath them as they rise up on plays. And it's a very dangerous play. And so by not rewarding that with a charge, you are decentivizing players sliding in and making that dangerous play. I think in the long run, it's good. It may not help Duke this year, may not help a lot of teams this year. We'll see. But the rest certainly weren't shy with that whistle early. Caleb Foster, just very early, and he continued it in the second half, going and getting buckets, aggressive takes, going into the chest of players, finishing, even hitting a 3-pointer. He looked good, and he had one of those vintage guard off the bench, gets a whole lot of buckets on opening day kind of game. Grayson Allen had that game as a freshman. He had 18 against Presbyterian. DJ Stewart had that game with 24 against Coppin State, and Caleb Foster tonight had that vibe. He didn't score quite as much, 15 points though. He's the second leading scorer for Duke. And I liked what I saw from Caleb Foster, and he had one of those signature 5-star guards off the bench in debut games that I've come to love. Tyrese Proctor, took him until 5 minutes to go in the first half to hit a 3-pointer. He ends with 8 points, 8 assists. And here's if you're a Tyrese Proctor enjoyer, if you're actually, I'll rephrase that. If you're a Tyrese Proctor ACC Player of the Year guy, you probably are not going to like me for a while, because I'm going to keep saying this. The points that Tyrese Proctor will score are not going to they will not put him in the conversation for ACC Player of the Year. I truly believe that he will not shoot enough times to score enough points. And today's the example that he is the distributor for this team. I think he took a bit of a backseat maybe because of the nature of the game. That's true. I expect him to score more than 8 points per game, obviously. He'll, score in double digits a game, I would assume. But he's more of a distributor. I don't expect Tyrese Proctor to be anywhere even close to this team's leading scorer. Since day one, I have believed he won't even be the second leading scorer on the team. I'm going to stand by that until I eat my own words. Jeremy Roach, in my opinion, will likely be the second leading scorer on this team. He was last season. I think he still will be this season. I stand by that. Now, I'm not going to just sit here and rag on Tyrese Proctor because dude's a hooper. He was going out there, just beautiful playmaking, beautiful assists, playing his role to a T and everything it needed to be. And it is only going to grow from what we saw tonight. It's only going to get better from what we saw tonight. I'm not going to rag on Tyrese Proctor anymore. I just want to lay the Tyrese Proctor Player of the Year conversation to bed as early as possible. If Duke has the ACC Player of the Year this season, it will undoubtedly be Kyle Filipowski. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Odds are I talk about it Thursday, and I'm sorry. But I just end up mentioning it all the time. Anyway, Tyrese Proctor, fantastic distribution. Loved what I saw from him as a point guard and passing-wise. So as, we see kind of the threes started to fall there toward the end of the first half, and that's when they really started getting cooking, because it was way too close for a majority of that first half. It looked a little sluggish. They were trying to find their footing, maybe a couple of defensive mishaps, nothing crazy, but they weren't hitting the shots. They weren't getting to their spots. And so the threes started falling there toward the end of the half. They go on that signature Duke run, and, bada bing, bada boom, they're right there with a 21-point lead at the half, because that's this team's identity. This team's identity is as a three-point shooting team. It's built to do that. John Shire played a freaking 4-guard lineup at some point. Not even just a 4-guard, like a 4-point guard lineup. When he might have had Roach, Proctor, Foster, and Blake's. McCain might have been there instead of one of the other guys. But I know he had a 4-guard lineup with Jalen at the 4. Like, dude, this team's identity is certainly it revolves around stretching the floor, being able to hit 3-point shots. Kyle Filipowski's going to be the typical 5. He can stretch the floor. Mark Mitchell's going to be there usually. He stretches the floor. And so that's Duke's identity. And when they find themselves hitting threes, that's when you're going to be happy as a fan. Otherwise, Duke might struggle a little bit. If those threes aren't falling, I don't know how much I love Duke's chances in certain games. Certainly, you're going to want to see him hit some of those shots on Friday night against Arizona. A lot more. I talked about Jalen Blake's, a lot more Jalen Blake's minutes than I first thought coming into this season. Coming into the season, I thought, freaking Proctor, Roach, McCain, and Foster, there's not room for Jalen Blake's. I was wrong. John Shire said there's room for Jalen Blake's and then some. He's an absolute defensive menace. He led the team in steals and blocks today. He scored in double figures, 10 points per game for Jalen Blake's on the 2023-24 season. He's a dog, man. He's a dog defensively. He's an absolute dog defensively, straight gas with some of those steals. And his ability to hang in the air and finish through contact is on the break especially is absolutely superb. And so I know that he's drawn so many comparisons to Jordan Goldwire over these last couple seasons, and rightfully so because of his defensive mindset and his motor. But I think when it comes to that finishing and that on the break kind of stuff for Jalen Blake, that's what sets him apart from Jordan Goldwire. That's what makes him better than Jordan Goldwire. I think he's a better 3-point shooter, certainly a better finisher. I think Jalen Blake's, he might not be as good of a defender, but he has the potential to be a better defender because he has more length and certainly more athleticism. So I'm loving the Jalen Blake's minutes at the moment until he gives reason to sit him down. I love the Jalen Blake's minutes right now. The hustle that we're seeing from him is fantastic. And then talking about a guy that got more minutes than Duke fans probably thought, Ryan Young. Because he's forced into being a starter with no Mark Mitchell. Duke fans most of them are gonna be split here this season. There's the Ryan Young enjoyers and there's the Ryan Young haters. That's Duke basketball in a nutshell. They're the people that are like, why does Ryan Young ever play? And then there's the people that are like, dude just goes, he hits his pump fakes, he gets his buckets, and he does what Ryan Young does. He's 24 and John Shire's going to play him. And I'm one of those guys. I'm a Ryan Young enjoyer. sometimes defensively, he leaves a lot to be desired. No doubt about it. Certain big-time matchups this year that I really don't want to see Ryan Young on the floor too much. But against Dartmouth, I don't really have a problem. He's rocking, he's a low post threat. And with Mark Mitchell out, I think he's an important piece to have playing more expansive minutes in a game like this. Shout out to fellow podcast host Ryan Young, by the way. Here's a funny one. Here's a funny note that I wrote down in the first half. I said, need a bit more from Kyle. Seems like he could do more. And then I know I tweeted about this too, but I was like, it seems like he's not doing a whole lot, and I don't notice much from him. And then I look at the box score, and, I'll be danged if he isn't the leading scorer on the team again. It's just every game too. Like, I'll be like, yeah, Kyle hadn't played that well today. I look at the box score, and it's like, oh, dang, he's the leading scorer on the team again. And that was the first half. And then there was the second half in which he didn't even play for like half of the second half, but he was an absolute beast in the middle. I mean, just throwing down aggressive two-hand dunks. Let me tell you, more aggressive, beautiful two-hand dunks in the beginning of that second half than I think Kyle Filipowski had all season last year. Two-hip flip is in full swing. He's absolutely going nuclear with the two-hand dunks. I love it. I love the aggression. I love the physicality. Go up there, rise up, get those dunks, get that confidence flowing before Friday against Zona. Kyle Filipowski was an absolute menace for Dartmouth today. He had 25 points, 7 boards, 10 of 12 from the floor, easily the player of the game today. And asserted that he's going to have a heck of a case to be the ACC Player of the Year this season. He's going to put up a lot of numbers because there's not a lot of points flowing in the interior for Duke otherwise. Ryan Young's not a bulk scorer unless he's playing Florida State. Christian Reeves, obviously not a bulk scorer. Sean Stewart probably won't play the minutes. I'll get into that in a little bit as well. Actually, that's probably the next thing I'm going to get into. We didn't see Sean Stewart until 9:41 left in the game, and then TJ Power shortly after that. But it became pretty clear Jalen Blakes is part of this rotation. Christian Reeves probably also. I think there's a bigger chance that Sean Stewart could fight Christian Reeves out of those minutes based on what we saw from Reeves tonight than I think TJ Power can fight Jalen Blakes out of it. Unfortunately, it kind of seems like TJ Power is going to get a little lost in the rotation this season and maybe have a bigger sophomore year. Sean Stewart might have the same. I think Sean's minutes will go up as the season progresses. At least that's my hope. And then there's another guy rotationally that I got to talk about that's notably missing is Jaden Schutt. I'm going to go ahead and look this up as I'm talking about it. Jaden Schutt did not play, and I know a bunch of people are like, I'd be sick to my stomach if Spencer Hubbard. Oh, wow, okay. So, they asked about Schutt's DNP, and Sheriff said everything is good between he and Jaden. He has a long road ahead of him. Keep the rest of the details private. So that's interesting. Yeah, so there's got to be something going on with Jaden Schutt. I said that I thought it was probably an injury, but upon looking at that, it seems like it might be a little bit deeper than an injury with Jaden Schutt. So interesting to see what's going on there. Obviously, all we can do is speculate, and speculation is not a good thing to do. Duke fans and insiders alike found that out this past week, talking about one of the stones in the Infinity Gauntlet being loose. Trilly Donovan said that for the Duke recruiting class, and everybody was like, oh, Isaiah Evans is going to decommit. He's going to decommit. And then Isaiah Evans was like, I ain't going anywhere. So don't speculate. Let's not speculate. We'll wait for the facts, but certainly interesting that Jaden Schutt didn't see the floor, especially if there's no injury to be talked about. Then that is certainly something to keep an eye on here. I mean, I already figured that Schutt probably wouldn't see the floor very much given the way the rotation's structured. That is definitely odd. So looking at no Jaden Schutt today. We'll see how that develops as the season goes on. I don't know if we get an answer to that against Zona or Michigan State. Michigan State, I think, just lost to James Madison, actually. I think as I'm talking about this, I think that happened. I think I got a text about that. So let's look this up. Let's in real time get my reaction. Yes, they did. They sure did. So James Madison beats number 4 Michigan State 79-76. And I've held that I think Duke's going to beat Michigan State. I'm doubling down. I'm tripling down on that now. After seeing that, I think the Arizona game is the toughest. I think that is going to be Duke's challenge. I do think Arizona is going to beat Duke. I'll get more into that on Thursday. Maybe I'm wrong about that. We'll see. I think it'll be a test, and I think Duke certainly can, and maybe even should win that game against Arizona. But I think it's going to be a big test against an old and physical Arizona team. I think that game will tell us a lot about this Duke team. If they come out of that game with a win, we will come out of here knowing that this Duke team's for real. I like their chances against Michigan State, obviously. They probably just built a chip on their shoulder having lost to James Madison, though. So don't write them off just yet. But anyway, I digress. Going back to Jaden Schutt, I don't think we're going to get the answer to what's going on from the Arizona and Michigan State games because I wasn't entirely certain that he'd play in those games anyway. So we might have to wait a little while until maybe like the 4th game of the season to get a real answer about the Jaden Schutt scenario. Maybe we'll receive some sort of answer from Shire or, somebody's reporting. But right now that seems like a big question mark. And that's all we can really say about it. But what we did see is how long it took for Sean Stewart and TJ Power to get in. The rotation today was about 10 guys deep because no Mark Mitchell and no Jaden Schutt. It could have been 12. It ends up being 10, and it took a long time for Stewart and Power to be guy 9 and guy 10 off the bench, which to me seems like they might not be permanent staples. I think that Shire, when Mark Mitchell comes back, the rotation might be 10, and it might be 10 with very spare spot Sean Stewart minutes to start the season. He may even record like a DNP against Zona. I don't know. I don't know. I think he probably plays, but just a little bit. Other than that, I think you've got your 9 guys that we know we're going to play. I think Christian Reeves is one of them. I think Christian Reeves could be replaced by Sean Stewart. We kind of flip either. I think it'll be one or the other of those guys as the season gets deep, but we'll see both of them in the early season playing some minutes. Reeves came in very early this game. He came in about 4 minutes into the game. He had one, lob layup from Tyrese Proctor. Other than that, not a whole lot offensively. Defensively, a little bit slow getting back on backdoor cuts and drives. He was able to block one shot, but wasn't able to stop a decent amount of looks at the rim. And I think that's kind of what we saw from him last season too. But I think the solution is keep playing him in games like this against Dartmouth. I don't know if we want to go trial and error in big games, but in games like when you're playing Dartmouth, keep running him and run him in the first half. Get him adjusted, let him block some shots, get some confidence, see what he's made of. That's the only way we're going to get the best out of Christian Reeves, and I think that's the route they need to go. Similarly, I think Sean Stewart should get some first half minutes maybe somewhere, but there's only so many minutes to go around ultimately, and Kyle Filipowski's got to play 30-something because he's an absolute unit. So you can't use but so many other big minutes, especially with Ryan out there as well. But yeah, Stewart did pretty well when he came in. Some athletic plays. He ends up with 6 points. And he comes in, he gets buckets when he comes in. And so I've been impressed by him. And I hate that TJ Power might get lost in the rotation, but it seems that it's going to be Reeves to begin with, and that 9 guys that we know are going to play every game. Could be Stewart though. And then other than that, you've got 8 dudes that we absolutely know are playing. Proctor, Roach, McCain, Mitchell, Filipowski as the starters. Young, Foster, Jalen Blakes, it seems, are 100% going to play. And we know that. They look good. Shire seems very confident in those guys. see, what else do I have? Oh, yeah. This is a good note to have. Jeremy Roach, 1,000 point update. He came into the night with 980 points. He scored 14 tonight, so just 6. Jeremy Roach needs just 6 points to cross the 1,000 point threshold, I believe, and I'll fact check this later, but I believe he'll be the 68th player to cross the 1,000 point threshold for Duke. I will come up with that complete list, and I want to post it on Friday when he crosses 1,000. I hate that I won't see the moment it happens, probably live, but very happy. He'll be the first player in 7 seasons to cross the 1,000 point threshold since Emil Jefferson did in the 2016-17 season. There were 3 different Blue Devils to do it that year: Jefferson, Allen, and Kennard. He'll be the first in 7 years to do it. That's a big deal. And he'll almost certainly get it against Arizona. If he scores less than 6, Duke probably will lose that game. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say he'll probably cross that threshold on Friday. Randolph Childress, who's calling the game, he pointed out this next point, that rebounding was a bit of a concern. It was a very even rebounding match with Dartmouth, which is not what you want to see. Yeah, they were down Mitchell, but it's not like Mark Mitchell's a super elite rebounder. So especially like when they're playing 4-guard lineups, it's going to be really difficult to rebound and do that. Kyle's a good rebounder, but box out Kyle and you're probably good on the glass when Duke's next tallest player is 6'5". And so it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough adjustment playing really small lineups like that, rebounding wise. It's going to be frustrating. There's going to be teams that Duke simply shouldn't do that against. I think Arizona's one of them. North Carolina would be one of them. Do not do that with Armando Bacot. Do not do that with Umar Ballo against Arizona. Rebounding is a little bit of a concern, and I'll talk about that in length on Thursday. And I want to end talking about Duke's 92-54 win against Dartmouth on a very positive note. I've talked about some negative things. I've talked about a lot of positive things, but I want to end on the most positive. Number 55, 5'8" senior from Los Angeles, California, Spencer Hubbard, hit his first shot in a regular season game as a Duke Blue Devil. Big time floater, big time assist. A few possessions later, so Spencer Hubbard with his first bucket, officially a scholarship player. He's out there getting buckets. With that being said, please, John Shire, I know you listen to this. I know you don't. But look, please, if somebody that can get Stanley Borden on the floor is listening, please, I just want to see Stanley Borden play for like 30 seconds in one regular season game. All I need is like 30 seconds of Stanley Borden. If I can get that, I can die happy, because I just want to see Duke go out there and hoop. Love that guy. But also Spencer Hubbard, big time bucket. Crazies were loving it. Love when the walk-ons get a basket. Spencer's worked really hard to get where he is, and so very, very proud of that effort, and it's very cool to see him get that bucket. That's what college basketball is all about. Number 2 Duke Blue Devils are 1-0, and nothing in college basketball is given, because the number 4 Michigan State Spartans are 0-1 right now. So, count your blessings, Duke fans. You want to know right now, and there's a big challenge waiting in a few days against Arizona. Make sure to stay tuned for Thursday's episode, breaking down the Arizona game. Stay tuned on DukeWisdom.org. Be on the lookout for the women's basketball article on the Richmond game that I'll put up tomorrow, and be on the lookout for women's basketball coverage throughout the season, in person and live, and stories for each game. And make sure to follow at Duke_Wisdom WBB on Twitter for all that coverage. I'll be live tweeting every game that I'm at for that as well. And of course, make sure to follow at Duke_Wisdom on Twitter and Instagram if you don't already. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel, trying to get as many subscribers as I can on there as well. Follow and like the podcast, share it, show it to a friend. You got Duke fan friends, say, hey, listen to this guy rant for 30 minutes post game. He's great. I would appreciate it. Thanks so much for listening, guys. It's been a blast, and I'll talk to you on Thursday.